Do you yearn for travel that involves outdoor adventure and learning? I do. I also have a passion for all things farming and agriculture. I've traveled to exotic jungles to learn about growing chocolate. I even once owned my own organic vegetable and sunflower farm. And now I'm planning my journey back to agriculture. Agritourism, defined as travel that involves some type of agricultural experience. Agritourism is all about entertaining. But the marketing strategist in me knows that at its core, agritourism is really about educating, and education affects change. My future farm needs to deliver a profound experience to all of its visitors. It needs to educate people about food, health, and climate. Join me to learn from experienced agritourism farmers and entrepreneurs and help me build my future farm strategy. And who knows, maybe one day soon you'll find yourself in a tropical jungle cutting open cacao pods with a machete, or savoring an outdoor plant-to-plate community dinner with 100 guests at a farm in Illinois. So let's tap into the agritourist in you. Patty and I are back. Farm Journal, Episode 2. I'm continuing the conversation, but shifting into a more real-time, behind-the-scenes look at what it actually means to build and evolve agritourism experiences. Coming off my time in Italy, where everything felt immersive and inspiring, I came back with a lot of ideas, but also a much clearer understanding of just how much detail and intention it takes to bring those ideas to life. This conversation is really about that space between inspiration and execution. From working through the logistics of building a farm tour and tasting experience, to stepping into the day-to-day reality of managing a farm store and identifying new revenue opportunities. It's a reminder that none of this is as simple as it sounds. Every decision, from customer flow to product mix to how people experience your farm, matters more than we often think. As you listen, I invite you to think about your own operation, your own ideas, and where you might be in that process. Because whether you're just getting started or you're refining something that already exists, this is the part where things get real and where the most meaningful growth actually happens. This is Jen Ross, your Agri-Tourist Podcast host. Quick shout out to my friend Patty Baker for her amazing and compelling questions. Please leave us a review, subscribe, and share this podcast. Enjoy my Farm Journal conversation with Patty Baker. Hello.
Hi.
So what's the temperature there?
Oh, it's so lovely. Today is so lovely. Oh my gosh. It's like, wait, let me put your sound up. It is like, I don't know, in the 70s maybe. And
is that like sunset or something? You're like glowing right now.
Oh, you know what? Let me see. Tell me is that better?
Yeah, no, it's fine. It actually looks nice. Whatever works.
Sorry, I don't want that much. That's too much light. Is that okay? Does that feel good?
As long as you feel good.
Yeah, no. There we go. Oh yeah, it is kind of glowy, isn't it? Yeah, I haven't never really kind of gotten the light really perfect in here. I'm in my daughter's closet. So I've turned this into my little, capsule. Okay, we're going to go with that. That's going to work. It's really, really beautiful right now, but we have the pollen thing happening.
Oh.
And I don't know, I think maybe because I ride my bike every day, I'm not affected by it. I think, you get that, that tolerance from constant exposure, I guess. But people really do suffer a lot. And after moving down from New York, it was quite surprising to me. I moved down 30 years ago or something. But that first year, I said to folks, I was working at Turner Broadcasting, I said to folks in the office, I'm like, what's the deal with the yellow? I mean, it is this thick.
Oh, wow.
It gets, if I lock my bike and I go to work in a coffee shop for a couple hours on something and I come out, my bike has a whole layer of yellow on it. In the cars, you have to use your windshield wipers, and it's like you're in a storm. It's so thick. There's so much. So for folks who have allergies, it's beautiful weather, but allergies.
I didn't realize it was that significant.
Yeah.
I'm not affected by any of that either, but many people around me are. So
yeah, people really do suffer, but Anyway,
Yeah.
but it is super beautiful and everything's blooming, and you'll be blooming soon too, right?
Yeah, we're starting slowly. It's chilly today, but it was sunny, and on my back deck, it's always 20 degrees warmer. So I like to go out there for like an hour or two and just get some vitamin D.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just so nice to sit in warm sunshine. I think it's supposed to rain tomorrow, but we'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost April, so I mean,
although this weekend is supposed to be cold again. We're supposed to drop again.
Well,
it's okay. It's March.
That's more like a last hurrah, you know?
Yes, it is the last hurrah in March.
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully you'll be through it, and the ground will thaw, and the dandelions will come up, and you know, all will be well again.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I'm super excited to see you and talk with you. And do you want to just jump in, or?
Sure.
Yeah.
Where would you like to start?
Well, first of all, again, you've got so much going on that's newsworthy and serves as kind of a bigger story about, springtime in America as farms are coming to life again for the new season. But let's start with your trip to Italy. That's where we left you.
Yes. The day before I was leaving, you left me.
Leaving. Right. So off you went to Italy. You went back to the place where you woofed, which is WWOOF, Working on Organic Farms. And you had done that back in October. So you went back to visit. So take us through that week. You went up to Tuscany. I've heard just little tidbits, but you've had a couple social media posts. But
yeah, it was beautiful. The entire trip from start to finish was everything that I thought it was going to be and more. Some overwhelming parts. And so the first few days I spent with my friend Helen. She lives in Terracini, just outside of Palermo. And one of the things we did is we wanted to do a hike. So we went to a new part of Sicily that I never had been to before, called Castel Bueno. It was like this city in the mountains, which is not a foreign thing for Italy, but for Sicily, it is sometimes. So it was this beautiful city in the mountains, and there was all this hiking, and it was really cool because we went up this road. It was the scary. There was no one on this road. The road was getting worse as we were going up the mountain in her car. We got to the top, and there was this what we would think of as a lodge up there. And, we kind of were like trying to figure out where the trail started and everything, because there wasn't anything to follow. So this guy was kind of in the kitchen, and he's like, oh, in Italian, he had welcomed us, and he's like, yeah, just go this way and follow the trail up to the top of the mountain. And then he was like, oh, you want lunch when you come back down? And so that was so we went and we did this amazing hike, and I did post some pictures. It was just breathtaking. I mean, there were some mountains in the distance that had snow on them. It was it was beautiful. And it was one of those days that you couldn't, it was cool, but it was sunny, and it was a perfect hiking day. And then when we came down, we had this authentic Italian, like 5-course meal with like 10 other people. And it was just so beautiful. It apparently is known for a lot of races, alpine races and stuff. It's one of those areas that has been doing those races for many, many years. Beautiful, beautiful area. So that was kind of the highlight. And then I ended in Marsala. Helen and her husband drove me to Marsala, which is the city I stay in, which is where Orto and Festa, Gianfranco and Nino's farm is right, like 5 minutes right outside the city. And it was good because they dropped me off, and they dropped me off like late afternoon. So I was able to take a walk on the water and watch the sunset and just have downtime. It's like, it's good to build in some alone time when you're with so many different people. And so that was nice. And the next morning, and they had invited me for dinner that night, but I was like, no, I'm just going to relax. I'm going to have downtime, catch up on some work. And then I went to the farm the next day, and Nino picked me up, and I was there. I worked with them it's about the whole week, Monday through Friday, basically. I was there, and it was really nice to see it in the spring. The intensity was not as intense as olive harvest. Definitely. Like that was like, okay, we're 5:30 in the morning and we got to get to the fields and we got to harvest. It was just so intense of a schedule. And then we had to take everything to the facility. You had to be there by a certain time to drop the olives off to be processed. This was nothing like that. It was
how would you describe a typical day?
Well, honestly, we did a lot of planting, right now. I mean, and what was really nice is a lot of the fruit was in harvest. So a lot of different types of oranges and citrus, things that you think is an orange, but when you taste it, it doesn't taste like a typical orange. There were so many varieties of oranges and orange looking citrus things. And then they had this lemon fruit, which I had a picture of. A typical lemon is we know of a certain size, which they had growing there too. But then they had this huge lemon, and inside the rind, the white part is really thick. And when they cut it, they actually cut it up, the whole thing into like squares, and they made a salad out of it. But the rind, it doesn't taste like lemon, that taste of a lemon that makes you squint, It was this mild lemony taste that was absolutely delicious. And then you had the center, which had was more lemony, but not as potent as a normal lemon. And they made it into a salad. And I was just like, oh my God, I don't know the names of a lot of these fruits, but it was just like, it was so amazing to just pick it off the tree and try something new that I would never taste here. I've never seen that fruit even in a store here. Like it's not something that I've ever seen here. So the whole week was really just about planting and prepping, some areas. Two of the volunteers that were there from Germany when I left were still there, and they were woofers.
Oh, wow.
Now they're more permanent woofers. They're there long term and they love it. And what was real, I'll tell you a story. So then there was one other woman there who was a woofer from Germany who went back home and is now back there permanently too. And she's actually the girlfriend of John Franco now. So it was kind of this really new family, old and new, and it was just so nice to be part of it. It just, I kind of fit right back into, so some of our dinners were 6 of us and some of them were 15 of us because John Franco's sister was there with her kids and his brother and family came and Nino's family was there. It was everything like it was last time as far as that family and that mealtime of lunch and dinner was just, really emphasized this time. And I loved it. My friend Chris, who was the one who coordinated the Tuscany part, flew down on Thursday from Tuscany and spent Thursday and Friday at the farm. So I let them give him a tour, and it was interesting to watch and learn and eat our way through the farm, which was good for me because I was helping them build this farm tour and tasting. So watching them do it for him and watch the cute question and answer and what was coming up was really important. And one of my favorite times, well, they did take me to a hot spring. So we got to do some touristy things, but it was something that a lot of people don't know about unless you live there. So we went to this hot spring one evening almost, like right before it got dark, and that was wonderful. But my last day there, me and Chris were going to fly up to Pisa. We were just hanging out at the farm until the flight. And John Franco and Nino were like, okay, we finally have time with you, like one-on-one. Let's talk about, we want to take notes about this tour and tasting. Like we've done a lot of things, but they didn't write it down. So they had their notepads out and we started talking and, intently talking about how to do this. We literally took it step by step. Where would it be? What do you need to build? What don't you have? All the little details that, where are people going to park? All these things we had to really think through, which they weren't even considering. So we were going through it, and then slowly, Chris came over, and then some of the guys, the woofers, came over, and his girlfriend came over, Lydia, and it was just everyone was engaged in this discussion and everyone took on a role. It was just really cool because one of the guys from Germany is a really good builder. And I'm like, you need a table that's going to fit 15 or 20 people. That's going to be right in the center of one of the fields that, has some shade. And right away he was like, I have the perfect material for that. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to get on it tomorrow. Like, it was just this feeling of collaboration. And they were all so excited about being part of this and creating this. And we put a deadline by mid-May, they need to trial run it, and they were going to trial run it with their CSA customers. It's a smaller group of people. So it was a perfect group that wasn't family per se and friends, but it was, an extension of their family that could give them good feedback and hadn't been to the farm like that. So I haven't checked in with them yet. I don't want to be that, too on them, but I'm going to try to keep them accountable because it's easy, as all of us know, on a farm to get caught in all that. But I really do. And the only reason I keep emphasizing it with them is I see how hard they work, and I kind of can see what may not work for them, for how they want to grow this thing, but I know how passionate they are about education. And I think they can deliver it in a slightly different way through something like this in an area that brings tourism naturally to it for its wine, or Marsala wine.
I mean, it's an interesting scenario that you had Chris there and you have these woofers from Germany and then the family and yourself. So you had a lot of different viewpoints coming in at once. What were some of the conflicting viewpoints? And what can you take out of that to offer to other farmers who may be wanting to put together some kind of a tasting? What are some common pitfalls and solutions? And what are kind of proven successes as well?
Yeah. As far as, okay, so I'm trying to think, like there were scenarios that came up, like the parking thing was something important, especially in Sicily. The roads there are like that one car can fit through, and where they were going to see, we had to talk about where are people going to enter. They have like many entrance opportunities, but like thinking about where are they entering? What does it look like when they enter? Do they have shelter where they enter? Where are they physically parking? And they didn't give that any consideration. And honestly, I wasn't even thinking about it because I thought they were going to enter from a different area. And then when they said they changed it, I was like, well, that road is literally a 1-car road. So that was a whole discussion. And obviously there was discussion around how that can happen and what they needed to do. One thing we were talking about, like people traveling have kids sometimes. So kids on a farm could be good and bad depending, but one thing that they've always, they're doing some school programs, and they actually brought me to a school program that they were doing. And I've done many school programs and I've been part of many school programs. This was the most chaotic thing I've ever witnessed in my life. And they were invited in, and I basically at the end of it, I was like, look, you need to really talk to them about more structure. But when I was thinking about what they were doing there, and I'm like, if you're bringing people to this farm, Lydia is like completely, she's amazing with kids. And obviously she needs to establish her role at the farm. She was in social work back in Germany. Lydia is John Franco's girlfriend. It was, so now she's working at the farm, but she kind of needs to create a unique role for herself. And where do her skills that she, has her degree in, she's really great with kids, and she worked in a school. And I saw her working in the school that day, and I'm like, she's amazing with kids. Like, she just has that energy. And I said, well, we were talking, and she wasn't there at the time, and we were talking about, okay, if people have kids, how are they going to be integrated into this? Because some of them are going to be bored, and I was like, well, what if Lydia took the kids to a section of the farm and did some planting with them, because they have raised beds, and actually created a program where the parents can kind of do their thing and really learn, but the kids are being educated in a very different way by someone who's really good at that. And they were just like it was coming together. And then we were talking to Lydia about it. She had all these ideas, like that she was just piling on top, which were amazing. You know, shelter, how are you dealing with the heat? You know, what time of day? We kind of debated that, because the problem with Sicily during season is the mosquitoes come out in droves, and that happens in a lot of places. But I was eaten alive there a lot of times, like that dawn out, like not dawn, the dusk hour when it's that sun is setting, the mosquitoes. So we were like debating what time of day. So they're going to test out 2 different times of day to see what works best. And I'm like, you need to test it, because you're going to change it probably a few times, you know. And then what do the tourists want? So there's a lot that they're going to have to deal with. Time, like you think something simple as time. Oh, there's a whole list of considerations about how to do that. Plus, I also told them, you know, you want this to be a complement to what you're doing, not completely interfere with what needs to be done at the farm. You know, when the animals need to be fed, they're going to start like getting angry if you don't, you know. So there's all these little things that had to be discussed regarding a simple concept of time. We talked about shelter. What are they tasting? You know, what are you going to have them taste depending on the season? Are you going to pre-prepare anything before they come? What are they drinking? You know, like what, you know, so there were all these little things that until you start going through the entire process, what sections of the farm do you want to focus on? That might be a seasonal thing, you know, or depending on what's growing that month or whatever. So we had a lot of discussion, and we literally took it from where they were parking to, you know, when they were exiting, you know, and every little step along that way. And, you know, and like I said, they end up at this beautiful table that's going to be built with recyclable material from the farm, where they do some tastings and discussion. And, you know, and then do you want to cross sell them anything? Are there products that you want, you know, olive oil? Like, are there things that you're going to let them taste that they can buy? So all that type of discussion. So it was a very energizing discussion, even for me, because like I was sitting there, like the parking thing just blew my mind, because it's such an important thing. And in the States, that's a huge consideration, because you need permits for stuff like that. Like you need to have permits for a certain number of parking spots. It's not like that there, but the access is the problem, you know?
I mean, I guess you also get into questions about, is it tour bus accessible? You know, are there liability issues? What about bathrooms? You know?
Yes. It was amazing how much detail came out of this simple little farm tour and tasting.
Handicapped access. I mean, do you find that those kind of discussions then serve as barriers, where kind of everyone's excited when they first start talking, but then when you start getting into the nitty gritty, you can sort of see the enthusiasm drop a little bit?
We didn't have that issue, but it depends on the people. It depends how motivated they are. I think they recognize that there are certain income streams that may work for them. Obviously, this is not tested yet, so it has to be tested. But this has a really good opportunity for growth because of the tourism, because of their right outside of Marsala. You know, you're close to this city that's being visited. You're close to the water. You're on the tour bus routes. You know what I'm saying? You have the fundamentals to make this successful. And farming is not easy. And if they want to continue education, in order to create a revenue stream around this is a really good opportunity. So I think their motivation is high. So those barriers, they'll battle them. They'll get through them. But yes, if this is a stream of income that's kind of like, you know, my CSA does really well, and this would just be an add-on, the barrier, you know, those barriers might be more monumental, and I don't want to tackle that for a few years type of thing. But I think they need to figure out some more profitable streams of income in order to really grow and sustain this farm and meet their mission.
Yeah, it sounds. What is remind us of their mission again?
Well, they're very focused on education, And it's basically, it's a completely sustainable, organic, regenerative farm. And, you know, there's just, it's challenging there. Like they have a CSA, but I can't see that model working as well as here, because not that farms are a dime a dozen, but local produce is all over. There's stands everywhere. They're quote unquote, they have grocery stores like we do here, but then they have a ton of small markets that it's coming from all, the stuff's coming from all the farms. So it's very accessible. Someone, is a CSA, and then they deliver all of their CSA, and driving there and gas and all that. It's just, if you really do the math, I'm kind of like, is the math really working? And I don't know if they've totally done the math. A lot of farmers don't do that math because they don't want to see what the labor is really costing them and the off the farm expenses. So I think that, this opportunity could meet a lot of their goals and align with exactly what they're trying to do and what they're trying to create, and keep them on the farm.
Yeah. Well, how does this align with, you had been talking previously about developing kind of a larger tour involving the place where you stay in Marsala. And then, of course, you went off to Tuscany. How is that sort of evolving into a bigger picture, or is it?
It's on hold in my brain right now. That's the best way to say it. I was focused on helping them with this piece because they need, honestly, to me, this is most important for them to be successful. My piece, I have so much going on with Massachusetts coming up. And, we didn't talk about Tuscany yet, but I'll talk about that. There's so much more for me to learn there. And I kind of realized that this time. I almost put the brakes on myself, saying, okay, this is not, something I want to take on right now. It's way bigger than what I want to deal with. And then, the world, there's a lot going on in the world, travel, what's travel going to look like in the next few months, in the next year, in the next 2 years. There's just so many question marks that I really want to see them successful and create some streams of income for their farm, so that bringing in volunteers and bringing in other tourists to stay in a more lengthier period of time or doing projects, it makes it a little easier, actually, because, they have income streams flowing already. Right. I just feel like this should be their priority, and, and they want it to be. My thing would just make it just add another layer on right now, where you see how just a tour and tasting can take on so much detail, Right. So I want them focused.
It's event planning.
Yes.
It's the same as event planning. So before we switch over to Massachusetts, then you went to Tuscany for a couple of days with Chris. Share with us again who Chris is, and also what your goals were in Tuscany and how that worked out.
Chris is a listener of the podcast. That's how we met. And he had reached out to me. He's an ER doctor in the Berkshires, and he lives in southern Vermont. He has a farm actually in southern Vermont with his wife and kids, and he has a lot of acreage. And he is very involved in the health benefits of being on a farm, visiting a farm, being on a farm, farming, and has kind of really looked at the research in the medical field around this, and is working with farmers, many different farmers, to support some research that he wants to kind of pull together. And I'm not sure if it's going to be a book or how he's culminating all this, but he's working on a project. He has family in Tuscany, cousins and aunts and uncles, and he's been going there for many years. Actually did some of his medical work in Siena and spent many years like there, and living there to a certain extent. and met some farmers. So some of his friends own some farms. One friend owns a vineyard, or the family, and it's a noble family. They own a vineyard and an olive orchard and a very historic property. And the other one owns a rose farm. And I met with both of them. I took a tour of one of the farms. The other I was at lunch with, and we spoke for hours about his rose farm. And I'm doing interviews with both of them though after the trip. It was kind of nice to just be with them, learn, interact, experience the properties, and then kind of reflect back. So I did it a little differently. I did bring my equipment, but I ended up not doing it. It was just too much. So we ended up flying back up. We stayed with his cousin in this beautiful home just 20 minutes south of Florence in Tuscany. It was a historic property that was run down that she has rehabbed. And it had many bedrooms in it. It was a very big property. It was beautiful. And we stayed there. She welcomed us in, and we had dinner there every night. It was, it was great. I took a walk with her one morning and just got to talk to her about life in Tuscany. It was just such a beautiful experience. Being with people in that capacity, there's just nothing that beats it. You miss all that when you're on a bus touring. You see different things and you learn about different things, but this was just a really unique experience. So Chris and I did a lot of the farm stuff one day, and then the second day he took me to a few cities. Not Florence. I didn't make any of the big cities, but we went to more of the smaller cities. Don't ask me to repeat the names. I'll destroy them. And it was the energy of these places is overwhelming to me. And I know when I say that people don't understand that completely, but I was very overwhelmed. It was 2 days in Tuscany, way too short. But being in these very old places, unlike many places on earth, it's almost like you're taking in the energy of all those years, and it just was amazing and intense and overwhelming all at the same time, and majestic and breathtaking. So I left overwhelmed. Like, I just was like, okay, there's no doing Tuscany in 2 days as much as we did. It was just way too much. It was like,
what did you do? What did you do in the cities?
Honestly, we walked around. He had been there before, so he was basically touring me around, and we went into buildings and saw the artwork and the drawings, and just
and this was in one day. You were bopping around.
One day we did that. The other day I visited one of the farms, took a tour, mostly of the vineyard side of the farm. We went into this historic house. I don't know what year it was from, but it was medieval. And then, he toured us around the house. Then we went to lunch with 15 people, like friends of Chris's, and it was a big Italian lunch, and we were there for several hours. And that's when I met the rose farmer and spent several hours talking to him and his family. And then we went back to his cousin's house and had dinner later on. So it was like, it was very intense. It was, like I said, it was no complaints. It was almost, I'm still reflecting back and trying to figure out, wow, like what just happened. Coming out of that experience was interesting because Arturo, the rose farmer, doesn't really focus on agritourism. He harvests only in May. It is just like, I'm like, boy, that's an interesting business model. And it was amazing, like the story around it. He does olives too, but I was like, that is amazing. But, he's actually trying to create another farm, like a smaller version, to have an agritourism for people to come and really learn about everything. So I thought that was interesting what he's trying to do. Now, the other gentleman, Cesare, who's inheriting this vineyard and olive farm, he's completely sustainable and organic. And he taught that interview is that discussion is really interesting because obviously grapes are very highly sprayed. He explained that grapes and apples are probably the two most sprayed things in the world, actually. And so to become a sustainable farm, an organic farm in that capacity is very challenging. And there's a big transition to doing it where you don't have a lot of product being output. So, he really went into a lot of that. But he was, oh my God, he was so smart. It was amazing, and we got to taste his wines at lunch. That was nice, and actually I bought some of his olive oil. That was delicious. I actually tasted that this past weekend. He gave me 2 different vintages, so they were delicious. But it was interesting because farms of their size struggle more with agritourism, where Tuscany gets the big tour buses and gets a lot of tourism, people visiting, and there are people who do it really well and are really good marketers. So they're trying to figure out how to break in. And, he does a lot of tours like he did for us. And he's trying to expand that as a bigger stream of income. Again, hence my discussion in Sicily. It's the same type of thing. They're different farms, but very similar way of farming and messaging. And they have so much to offer people coming in, so much education. So it's interesting. We'll see how I'm interested to see how he evolves his business in that way.
Mm-hmm. And what about the olive oil? Is that available here from either the Sicily farm or
No, I do not. No, definitely not Gianfranco or Do Investa. Their olive oil is not available. It would just be too costly to get it here. A lot of the oil from the gentleman in Tuscany goes, and they're in the Chianti region of Tuscany. There goes to Germany, actually. A lot of his olive oil goes to Germany. I think it's mostly a European market that's buying from at least these smaller producers. So,
yeah. So,
unfortunately.
So you were talking about farms that kind of have their message together, and there's a lot of them that are doing it really well. And I guess that takes us to Massachusetts, because the farm that you're working with there is a heritage farm, over 300 years old, long history of agritourism. Why don't you share with us a little bit what's happened since you got back from Italy?
So what happened? So I was actually up there this weekend, and I have a place to stay now.
This is in Massachusetts.
This is in Massachusetts, yeah. So I was home for about a week or 2 and doing more work from home. And then I went up there this past weekend to bring some of my sunflower bins up there because we're going to be doing sunflowers. And I have all these bins from my farm. So I'm like, they're sitting in a shed. I might as well use them up in Massachusetts.
What do you mean by bins? What's a bin?
So so when you're harvesting the sunflowers and you kind of package them in usually 5 in a bunch, you have to put them in they're these wooden bins and with a bucket in them. So they're nice. Yeah. They're very farm,
Right.
They do say Long Island on one panel. So we're going to be creative and paint something over that. But it's great because I feel like they were sitting in my shed for years, and I feel like I'm reviving some of my old farm stuff. And I was looking around. So when I went up this weekend, I had a few meetings. One of them was with my baker, who was basically going to run the commercial kitchen and the pies and the bread and anything coming out of the kitchen. So we wanted to meet in the kitchen and see what we needed and talk through ingredients. And then I was meeting with the person who used to run this part of the business. And I went through her vendor list and had to, figure out who was who and what supplies we need. And then, obviously I've taken that back, organized it, had to make contact with all these vendors, get an account with them, a lot of stuff to do. And so going into the farm store, which was, it's empty right now, was overwhelming. That's going to be a theme, overwhelming. It was a very overwhelming weekend, good, but everything was okay, I got to figure this out. I got to figure that out. And so, walking in the farm store, it's this blank canvas. And I have to figure out how do we want, what do we want to pull into it? How do we want to merchandise everything? What's the customer flow going to look like? Have been some challenges with the flows. So it's like how to figure out those challenges. They have since added a donut machine in a new area of the farm store that's like visible to the public so the public can see donuts being made. That's a new machine that had 4 weeks of production before they closed. It took a while to get the health department approvals and all that. And they got it down. So I'm going back up on April 23rd to learn how to use the donut machine with the donut expert, the manufacturer. And so that's a whole thing, but also, the donut machine and the donuts in itself are a revenue channel that wasn't marketed. They had 4 weeks with the machine. That's a whole business within the business.
Right.
So of course my mind is and I contacted that company, which is a very large company behind the scenes who supplies a lot of the product and the quality mix and stuff, and learning about the mix and what's in the mix. And, so the machine, the mix, and then how are we marketing this? And they have a whole marketing department. So I'm consulting with them on their knowledge around this, how they've dealt with other farms, what's worked, what's not worked. It's a whole, so that's a whole piece, small. It's like this small piece that could be a huge business within the business, because I saw the numbers for 4 weeks, and the numbers for 4 weeks were amazing. And that was just 4 weeks of production.
Was that during the fall?
October to November.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Mid-October to mid-November, which is could be starting to be off season, maybe the October piece, but so it's it's hard to tell.
Has great potential.
Oh my God, it has significant potential. And then also, how do we incorporate the products we grow, the fruits we grow into the donuts to make them unique to our farm? Yeah. Berries. We're a big berry farm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, from what we've learned about you throughout this whole podcast, and especially during the Italy trips, is that you really get excited and thrive on the hands-on experience. Even, the fact that you woofed now twice, actually working on those farms. So the thought of learning how to make donuts from the donut maker, how does that make you feel?
I'm excited. The funny thing is, I'm very hands-on, and I like to really know something inside and out. I have to teach other people, so I have to know it. So going into this opportunity, I knew that there's a lot of hands-on. And when you work on a farm and you manage a farm, you're hands-on, literally hands in the dirt, working with everybody, so I'm fine with helping to mix the donut mix and make the donuts all the way to marketing the business and being the ambassador for the business. That's how you really connect with your customers. That's how you really get to know what your customers like and what they don't like. It's funny we were talking about this because I was having this discussion. I was interviewing someone yesterday for this farm internship. It's like a marketing internship that I'm trying to get some students for. And then I had a follow-up discussion, and I was talking to an adult about this discussion I had with this student. And what many people don't understand about marketing is that this person made a comment like, well, am I going to just be be the register person? And I was like, there is no such thing as a register person. That's a marketer. That's one of your most important people, who's talking to your customers, who's corresponding and doing transactions with your customers, who's garnering information and feedback about products, what people like, what people don't like. Their interaction with your customers may determine if that customer will ever come back to your place of business.
I mean, you were just having that conversation as well with your last podcast guest, the Baker Creek heirloom seeds, and how important. And I was thinking about, there's a number of small businesses that we just go back to again and again because we have such positive experiences, especially online, with the customer service. Never an issue.
Yes. and it keeps coming up in my conversations most recently. And it just was right away, though, when I was talking to this person who I was interviewing, that person wasn't getting it. They were more concerned about, I don't want to just be a register person. And I'm like, okay, like like you're not getting it. And this person was majoring in marketing. And I was, wow, I was like, okay, I find that position to be the most important position. And that's not what I'm just hiring for. I mean, the people that I'm trying to hire are going to be basically with me through this whole process. But they also have to know that it's going to be unclear at times what we need to do. We're going to have to make it up as we go along. We're going to have to be creative. We're going to have to think out of the box. The structure may not be there, and it has to be the right person who's okay in that environment. And I'm fine with that. But it's just interesting. It is so important. These people are your marketers.
Right.
And
again, it's that rubber hits the road input that you're getting as well. I know one of the farms where I woofed, I was at a large conference, I guess, where we were selling the lavender. And again, it was that interaction with the public. It was having to know, the differences among all the lavenders, being able to entice someone, trying out different marketing messages to see which worked, which cut through the clutter.
Yep.
All of those touch points become such critical and important information to share back. And then also it's transferable to anywhere else that you're trying to sell something.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
So,
I mean, my daughter used to work for a farm after she worked for me, and he would love sending her to the markets because she just cross-sold, and she had engaging conversations with customers about recipes and what to do with certain vegetables. And she was engaging. She had really good sales,
right. Right. And sometimes it's just like some one little barrier where someone says, I really would love to get that, but I don't have a refrigerator, or I don't have whatever. And then you can usually do some kind of workaround with that. But it's also great feedback to know, well, this is actually a problem people are having, and it's an easily solvable problem. So, yeah, definitely. So what did you end up doing with that one person?
We just had a conversation about marketing, and I tried to emphasize the importance of,
They're in the program?
No, this was just an interview.
Okay.
So it was an interview. Okay. It definitely, I don't know if that person really was getting it. So that's good for me to know. It's that's someone that's, that's not the type of engagement I want. It's funny because some of the students, they get it right away. They get it. And they're open to whatever because they know this is such a learning experience that they're going to see a real true business running. And you know what? I have many years of marketing and business development experience that I can lend to them. And I also want to learn from them.
Right.
I mean, they have a lot to offer with their knowledge from whatever roles and education they're bringing into this. So
yeah. It's so funny. I worked I'm here in Atlanta, Georgia, and I worked at the corporate headquarters of UPS, their global headquarters. And I was in a marketing department, and every single new employee goes through this training program, and they send you out in 5 different capacities. And you're literally wearing the browns and delivering packages. You're in the customer service center. You're at the packaging center, the processing center. You're going through all of those things so that when you're back doing your regular job, I mean, you know exactly what that's like and what that experience is. So I agree with you that, especially when you're on a farm, to just really kind of know hands-on all the different things. You can pick and choose. I do not want to be involved with the castration of goats again. or the horn removal. No, but I did get to experience it. So, and that's how you get to know what you want to do and what you don't. So with that in mind, what do you see as some other hands-on things that you may want to learn at the Massachusetts farm that you know, on your list of things you need to experience to fully understand?
Well, first, there's a lot in the commercial kitchen that I have. There's an amazing baker, and we're kind of expanding her. I'm trying to really build it into more of a management role because we want to build that business. The pies and the jams and all of that. Obviously, I want to understand, what goes into all of it. And even pickling and everything that we're going to be doing. I mean, I know some of it from my own kitchen, but how they do it there and stuff like that. Then you have the donut machine. Honestly, I have set up farmers markets and farm stands, but I've never really merchandised a farm store and one that has certain challenges to it. So there's a lot I need to think through. And one thing I was excited about is I went through all the vendors, I've connected with all of them already, and it's trying to also figure out what do I want to still bring, what do I want to bring in, what might I want to wait on, what do I need? And then I came across a vendor that sources local vendors. So they're one vendor that sources local and does delivery on a daily basis, which is a dream of a small business owner, because it's hard when I'm dealing with 20 different vendors. There's a point of it doesn't make sense, and some do delivery, some don't. You got to pick up. It becomes impossible. Well, this vendor invited me up to come see all of their products at their place. They would bring it to me to taste and all that, but they're like, why don't you just come up to our place in Massachusetts and go through everything so you visually can see what things look like, not just on a computer, which I can do it on the computer, but it's really nice when you can walk in to almost like their own store and kind of pick and choose. So I'm really excited about that because, I've been to enough farm stands to know what might work, but their expertise about what is actually working and keeping things very local, because a lot of their products are from Massachusetts and from Vermont, and the states right there, and some New York, some New Hampshire and stuff like that. That's exciting to me, because there's so many different companies like you don't know about, and you would never know about being a small business because you just never have that opportunity to reach out like that. So that is exciting. So either next week or the week after, I'm going up to visit their warehouse store or whatever, we want to call it. A lot of merchandising stuff to think about.
I mean, you are bringing so much enthusiasm and energy, to this pursuit. Is this an energy that you have felt, or is this a new energy? I mean, obviously you bring a lot of energy to your podcast all the time, but are you feeling like, from where you're at in your life, are you feeling like, wow, I'm really in the flow right now?
Yes, I feel like I'm in the flow right now. I feel that going up there and physically being there is a step up in energy because you're kind of in it. It's like live around you. It's not just you're talking about it or looking at something online. You're in it. Like being in that store, like I said, it was energizing and overwhelming. And it was cool because I took video of the inside of the store, the vacant store. And one of the people that I'm hiring is really good at merchandising. She's a student and a graduate student, actually, who's going to work with us. And I'm so excited. I sent her the videos. I'm like, okay, start thinking. Envision what, how we're going to organize this, some decorating we need to do. Like, that's very energizing. And then at the same time, it's like, oh my God, we're opening May 2nd.
Okay, yeah. So let's say you're opening May 2nd. So when are you actually moving up, and how did you land on your place to live, and how do you feel about it?
So I'm renting someone's house who's related to the farm, and I actually stayed there when I stayed there one night when I was up this weekend, and it was great. It's it's 2 miles from the farm. It's right in the downtown area. It's a beautiful home.
That's great.
Can't beat any of that.
Wow.
And yeah, it worked out really well. And so that's set. So Check.
That's amazing.
It's
Yeah.
relieving, and I'm really excited about it. And
when does that start?
So mid-April, I'm not sure the exact date, but mid-April, like, is the, official start. I'm probably going to go up around the 17th-ish, give or take, and then be there. I may come back and forth a little bit, just to kind of get some more stuff that I need. But for the most part, I'll be there regularly more than here regularly.
Mm-hmm.
And we open on the weekend starting May 2nd.
Right.
And then that last weekend in May, we roll into all week long, every day of the week, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Well, I saw online on the website, is it nourse.com? Is that
Nurse, and it's pronounced nurse.
Right, yeah.
It's NOURSE farm.com.
The farm.
Yeah,
right.
Farms is a different.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
I saw that.
And they pronounce it Nurse Farm.
Right, okay. So I saw that there's some events coming up already on the calendar, and also that the CSA is currently having its open enrollment right now.
Yep.
And how is that going? Is it mostly repeat people, or how?
Both.
Okay. And are you involved in that?
I'm completely running it. So yes.
Okay.
Yes. People are enrolling online, and I'm interacting with them, and have, communicated with them a few times, and introduced some new components to the CSA, some more enhancements to the CSA, and, made that public recently. And we're getting close to our number. So,
well, let's explain for a moment what a CSA is. And I saw the model is a little different than some of the other models.
Yes.
So maybe you can step us through that a little bit for listeners who maybe haven't had experience with the CSAs before.
Yep. So it stands for traditionally community supported agriculture. That's where the acronym comes from. And traditionally, people basically purchase a share in a farm, different sizes sometimes, and basically you're investing in your local farm, and in return you get food. You get fruits, vegetables, depending on that farm, flowers sometimes, eggs sometimes, depending again on that farm. Traditionally, you would volunteer as well. I think that has been removed from current models for the most part. Some still have that because of just people and the inability, the time, we're just so busy. So in our model, we have 3 different sizes. And again, people pay a fee for 20 weeks, and every week they get produce back. Now, traditionally, you get a box of produce that's selected by the farm. It's usually what's abundant that week, what's growing. If kale and carrots are abundant that week, you're going to get kale and carrots. It can vary from 5 to 9 items. It really just depends on the type of share, the size, and all that stuff, what the farm is growing. That's the one thing with a farm. On the farmer's side, the great thing about a CSA is you get money up front that you can invest in all the upfront costs of getting plants in the ground, the seeds and the soil and everything you have to invest in. You have that money from these shareholders right up front. So it's a great financial model for a farm. You just have to make sure, it sustains throughout the CSA. The hard part for a farmer is you have to have a good diversity of produce and fruits, because you can't give them kale all season long. You have to really think about and plan for those weeks. It's a very, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a very detailed, it takes a lot of detail. I think the farmers that do it really well are really regimented. And there are farmers that make a lot of money with CSA, but they're very regimented on a very small piece of property even. So the one unique thing about our CSA is, and it was something that I was looking into at my farm when we were doing CSA, because the ability for people to choose. So we do a market style CSA where we literally set up a market in the back of our farm store. It's kind of like an outdoor area that's covered, and people can shop for what they want. And all the vegetables and fruits have points associated with them based on, there's like it's kind of a loose formula of how they do it. So broccoli might be 4 points that week. And so you determine and each level. So we have a small, medium, large. And so let's say the small is, I'm making this up, I don't remember, is 15 points. So they basically get 15 points worth of produce. But if I just want blueberries that week, and I want to use all my points for blueberries because I just don't need anything else, I can do that. Whereas in the other model, you're getting, it's pre-boxed or bagged. So, so it is, a lot of people love the market style CSA because they like to have choice. So it kind of, it's interesting, you know, the old style, which I used to do at my farm, was nice because it kind of forced people to try new things, you know, and I liked that. Yeah. But, you know, this is what they've been doing. They switched to this model several years ago, and it's been it works really well for the farm. So we have to, there's a lot of analysis that needs to go into looking at, you know, how well this is doing. So we're going to do that this year.
Right. I mean, it sounds like that would reduce waste a lot, but also increase competition for the hot items, you know?
Well, the challenge I see, and it's definitely something that you see in feedback in these types of CSAs, is if it opens at 2:00, and you get there at 5 or 6 when it's closing, are you going to have the same variety and choices? Because the farmer has to be careful. If he has 3 pickup days, you know, I need to make sure I have enough. And if I'm changing it from day to day because I'm harvesting different things, that can become complicated too. So there's just a different type of coordination that needs to happen. Then I'm going to be interested in watching how that works, because it's challenging from a farmer perspective. It really is. There's a lot of things you need to consider to keep the customer happy.
Yeah. I mean, there's something nice to know about. The box is the box, and everyone's box is pretty much the same, you know. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I've seen so many different models on it, and I know it can be logistically very challenging when farmers are allowing choice online, because then it becomes a packing nightmare. If this one doesn't want this and this one does,
we're not doing that.
I have seen folks do that, and yeah, that's I mean, there are definitely a lot of ways to go about this. So I'm curious to hear how that's going to shake out. What other challenges do you anticipate as you're going into the season?
Oh.
What look like the big issues that are keeping you up a little bit at night?
Just setting up the store in time, getting all the vendors organized, getting into a flow. You know, it's like everything is new, and it's like it's going to take me, like, I'm anxious to get up there and start setting things up and start figuring out what goes where and what products I'm going to bring in, and when they're coming in, and how to rotate things, and how things, you know, and seeing how things are going to sell. And, you know, and then in June, the CSA, you know, starts rolling. So integrating that in, and, you know, and then the pick your own starts rolling. So integrating that in. And we also have a new POS system. We've never had a POS system. It's not difficult, but there's a lot to input and set up for that. You know, I've done some of it online, but then the whole register has to be set up in store. So there's a lot of logistical stuff that is kind of, you know, if I overthink it, then I'm like, I get overwhelmed, but then I'm like, okay, pace yourself one step at a time. It'll all work out.
Yeah. I mean, my next question was going to be how, when you do feel overwhelmed, like in Tuscany, and also when you walked into the store, do you have a particular kind of mental health toolkit that you go through to face that feeling of being overwhelmed?
Well, I double down on my walks. So not just morning, it'll be evening too, because that evening walk is a good way to just decompress.
Yeah.
I've actually been writing a lot, like just getting it out. If I get it and I type it, I don't write it. I end up typing it. It's just easier for me. But if I get it out of my head and I get it on paper, it allows me to let it go. It allows me, it's also in a safe place that it's out of my head and it's kind of there. And if I have to go back to it, I'll reread it. And then all of a sudden it doesn't sound as bad, or I can break it down into steps or deliverables versus it just being this mush in your head that you just feel overwhelmed by. So I've been doing a lot of that. And honestly, just talking to different people that are good at certain things. Like I've been just consulting with different people who might be able to help me with certain things, that I know are more the expert at that, and that could just kind of help me work through it. Like even the woman who's running the commercial kitchen, like I've been consulting with her a lot, on certain equipment and certain things that I could get myself overwhelmed by, but I'm just like, we talk it through and then we usually can come up with a solution. So that's what's been working right now.
So walk it out, write it down. Number 2, 3,
talk it through,
write it down.
Yeah.
And 4, talk it out.
Yep.
Or talk it through.
Yep.
So those are great steps. And then also,
and get plenty of sleep.
Get plenty of sleep. Rest.
Yes.
So 5-step path to success there, right?
But we haven't proven the success part yet, but we'll see.
5-step plan to get to tomorrow. What about lessons you've learned now in this compressed time? Because we've talked before about some of the lessons you've learned, but between this additional trip to Italy, and it sounds like it was kind of similar to your first one. I was going to ask, was there any romanticism from the first one that was a little bit different the second time? But it sounds like you did have kind of an equally positively immersive, quintessential Italian experience.
Yes and no. The one thing that was different was it was more, I think with the olive harvest, it was so intense that you were involved in just that. This was more breadth of other things. So I kind of felt like I was in their business and in some of the challenges of their business more. So the romanticism wasn't always romantic, like it was, I felt like I felt some of their concerns and challenges and people issues, like just things that they were experiencing, real life stuff where that almost, it's not even, we didn't have time to even talk about any of that. We didn't have time to see any of that because it was like this full speed ahead olive harvest. So if I go back for olive harvest, I know the intensity of that. This was the intensity of that was not there, but the intensity of real life was there. Even just family watching, his sister was there with her young children, very young children. So it brought back all my memories of my young children and the challenges she was having. And his mom is older and experiencing some age stuff and watching that, just, real life stuff. So I kind of felt like I was immersed more in the real life stuff than I was the first time, the everyday real life stuff. So it kind of took some of the romanticism out.
Right. That makes sense. And obviously in a positive way, because it deepens the experience and the connection with the locals and the kind of everyday reality of what it's like to live.
Life.
In a place that, has challenges like everywhere, especially farms. What about the whole Massachusetts situation? What have you learned about yourself?
Well, from Italy to Massachusetts, I think it's funny. During this time period, I've been hit with a lot of requests from people to do different, like the farm participating in this and the farm doing this. And that there's a part of me that wants to try to do it all, that wants to like take on every opportunity or figure out a way to, it may not be the full opportunity, but, like, for example, we got a request from a local company. Can we offer your CSA here and you deliver it to our employees? I used to do that in my CSA, but my model was different. And I was like, well, that'd be a great way to test this model with just one company that's close by the farm. But I actually rethought it after all of this. And I'm like, not a good idea to test this year. So how I left it with the person was, look, this is too much for me to even answer you right now, and if I do, it probably would be overextending myself. How about we look at this as when I'm, the season's going and we're in our CSA, I can then see if I can do a shorter version of a CSA for you into the fall. And maybe we test it out then. And he was totally agreeable to that. Mm-hmm. So I didn't say no, but I am saying no to a lot of things up front because I know, and I'm realizing more now than I was kind of in the earlier days of this. I need to adjust into this personally, not just into the business itself. Like I need to figure out my role and how I'm working and how I'm feeling, how I can best do this role and best lead this team. And if I'm already pulling myself into all this stuff, I'm never going to get that base down. And once I get the base down and I'm comfortable in that role, then I can look at some of these little things and say, okay, what can we do reasonably and what do I want to put off to year 2? Mm-hmm. So that's hard for me because I'm a do it person and I try to figure a solution out, but I am really consciously looking at what's realistic. And again, my trip to Italy made me start really thinking about that because I was watching them be very realistic. Mm-hmm. And I was watching the realism, not just the farm in Italy, how romantic that is, but the challenges and how to make this profitable. And that's what I have to do here.
Right. Right. So not biting off more than you can chew, listening to your gut, taking those walks so you can sort of process everything that's coming at you in the course of the day. So, yeah. So to wrap up, is there anything else you want to share? And also, do you have any new advice for folks who might be interested in sustainable agriculture, what to do in their local environment right now to kind of deepen their knowledge or experience? Or for anyone who's thinking of making any kind of a pivot or a change, especially at that empty nester stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, and you, I know you believe this wholeheartedly and have lived it, and I do as well. Volunteer, get involved in whatever you're interested in. Start just by volunteering a day a week. See if you really like it, because a lot of people, and I remember this from interns at my farm, we romanticize certain things, and then when we do it, we sometimes like, ooh, I really don't like this, or I don't like this aspect of this.
Right.
You might not want to get your hands in the soil, but you might like working in the farm store or merchandising the farm produce or being at the farmer's market talking to people. What do you really like about something? You might think you like something, but what do you really like about it? And the best way I volunteer, get a part-time job, work away. It's kind of all that. Those are such the power of those interactions. They are life-changing, and not just because you have this experience, but from an education perspective, it really will give you insights into what something is really like. And, from the inside, not just from that outside view.
I really love that because especially with food, there are so many entry points into that conversation and that connection. And something I just like to share with folks that there's probably a food pantry in your local community. And I know I steward a garden at our local food pantry, and that's what I love to do. But there must be 50 other people there doing so many other things. There are people that work directly with the clients, assessing their needs. There's folks who are in the back packaging, putting things in boxes. There are people preparing a lunch. There are folks bringing boxes out to cars. There are folks going on other days, not even the days when the food pantry is in action, to receive supplies, to break down boxes. I mean, there's so many ways to be involved and so many different ways to schedule that involvement as well. So I think that that's definitely something that gets overlooked because most of our communities at this point do have often more than one food pantry opportunity. And you may be surprised. I mean, no matter where you live, you may not be aware of what's available, and the definition of folks in need is broader and broader all the time. And there are many people who really only need it temporarily for very specific reasons. And it's actually one of the happiest places I go in the course of a week. They're the most, it's such a life affirming place in so many ways. And when I traveled across the country, when I woofed across the country, I volunteered at various places along the way. That was kind of one of the ways I grounded was I would find the local community garden. I would find the local farm that was doing nonprofit work, and also the local food pantry. And wherever I could, I tried to volunteer at those places after woofing, during the day. And I had my bike, so I could get around pretty easily. And there's really amazing things happening around this country.
Yep. Absolutely. So, and the need, like you said, there is a significant need.
Right. And then again, you do learn for yourself. I really like to be in a customer facing role, or I really like to be digging in the soil, or I really prefer to, be working with some folks in the back and we're laughing and telling stories
and cooking or
I'm here to make friends, or I'm here not to make friends,
Yep.
I mean, there's so many entry points. So I agree with you, on that kind of like volunteering and kind of learning what role you like to play. And then, whatever your personal passion happens to be, if it's not food pantries, you can then transfer that, that service or that job search, into that arena.
So just before we go, what do you have to look forward to? What's coming up for you in the next few months, Patty?
I'm so excited. I know, busting with excitement because I'm now officially in training. I was trying about a little bit before leaving. I consider myself in training because I'm heading out for another woof experience. I'll be going back to Ireland, which I woofed across Ireland after the United States. So I'm going back and I'm super excited about it. I'm going to be on a spirituality centered farm. And I've been on several others. And I'm kind of curious to see if this is a direction. It's kind of interesting. You start to see the different models and get a feel for what you like. I really like the whole body experience. So I was with the Dominican Sisters of Peace on an alpaca ranch in Kansas, and I was at a Krishna temple in Utah with llamas. And this is a Tibetan Buddhist place in Ireland, which is interesting. And so I'm kind of curious to see how that goes because, again, as you know, I'll be 63 this summer. So trying to see, a lot of the woofing, depending on the location you go, it could be sort of a young person party place. The spirituality places don't tend to be that. And so these seem to be better fits for, what I'm looking for. I really like kind of a peaceful place. And I really love just working in the soil. That's very much a moving meditation for me. Absolutely. So I'm kind of in preparation for that. I've got the food pantry garden going, and then I have my home garden and trying to design that in such a way this year so that I'm going to put in the summer crops. We've already got, we have spring crops and fall crops here are different than our summer crops. Our lettuce and tomato are not together here in Atlanta. And so I'm going to kind of put the summer crops in. Normally it would be April 1st, but I'm going to wait till kind of mid-May because we have a very long season. We can go to October, November. So I'm going to wait till like the end, like mid-May, and then I'll get the crops in right before I leave the country. So hopefully they behave themselves, until I get home,
I was going to say, do you have someone to care for them?
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of wing it a little bit. My husband does what he can, and I just come home to, whatever I come home to, and we go from there.
Your daughters aren't they meeting you?
We'll be traveling together for the first week, and that's a real gift, to have an opportunity to travel. My grandparents are from Ireland, and so has a little bit of a heritage angle to it as well. And so, I'm excited to share that with them. One is, they live completely across the country from each other and from me. So we've never really, I don't think we've ever traveled together, just the three of us. So
that's exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's a unique opportunity. We get these windows. I think that's what I've learned over the last few years. And I think you're seeing this as well, that we get these windows in life. And I've got elder parents, they're in their 90s. And so you kind of you're juggling, especially as moms and daughters and wives, we're juggling a lot of things. And that doesn't mean, because we're juggling other people, that we shouldn't be moving forward on our own passions and purpose as well. So I've tried to do that, and to do that in a way that inspires the other folks and gives them the freedom to do it as well. I think that's the gift, is that everyone's allowed to pursue their own purpose and passion. I think we say it, but we don't always fully believe that we have that power. And when our other loved ones do it, it gives us that permission to do it as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I love that you're doing that for your children as well.
Thank you. And one other question, you're taking a language class, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm 2 years now into learning the language of Irish, which is an endangered language. And I'm also back in college. I went back for a new degree.
You're amazing.
Well, because I just kind of like working the angles, because like with woofing, how you can live in all these amazing places and have these really, really special experiences for free. I mean, you're in exchange for your labor, but you're not paying a penny for accommodation and food. And so it's a really cool way to travel and do unique things. And when you turn 62 here in Georgia, maybe in your state, maybe in everyone's state, I'm not really sure, but you can go back to any of the state colleges and universities for free. And so I
have to check on that. I don't know if that applies to New York.
I'm now in 2 of the colleges because I went to, I'm in one with the degree program, Irish Studies degree program. And then I went down, there's a campus like just a mile or 2 from my house for Georgia State University, and they have a makerspace. And the makerspace has laser cutting of wood, and it has 3D printing and sewing machines and all this woodworking, all this incredible equipment. And you have to be a student there. Or I asked the person, I said, how do I get to use this? And she said, well, you have to be a student here. And I said, well, I'm a student at the other, this other university. And they said, no, you have to be a student here. So I went home that day and applied. So anyways, yes, I got it. So I'm going to audit a class there. I think I'll take an art class or something. But I really just want to get into that makerspace. So, I went in yesterday. I was talking with her yesterday, and I said, she was showing me the laser printer. And I said, wait a minute. So if I use my chainsaw and I slice tree trunks and I bring the slices of wood in here, you'll teach me how to create something out of it, to laser print something on these hunks of wood, on these slices. And she said, yes, bring in your wood.
Wow.
So
that sounds cool. That's totally up your alley.
And I have a chainsaw. But like you, I'm super excited. Again, it's like this idea of learning something new, being hands-on, having access. I love the idea of having access to things that, and again, there's so many things in our community that we don't even realize that we have access to.
Yeah.
And many these maker spaces, by the way, a lot of libraries have them.
Yes, my library has that. Yeah,
right. They're turning up at many more places, and they're free for the community.
I know.
And a lot of times, like at this place, at Georgia State, they have online tutorials. So I have to go through all of those. I think it's like, to be sure I don't slice a finger off or something or break something of theirs. But that'll give me my basis. So like you, when, I know nothing about laser printing wood, but, you start at the beginning.
That's great.
You watch a few videos, you learn, you ask, you do it. So we'll see. So maybe in some future podcast,
yes, we'll be talking about that.
I've got this off Etsy, and it's kind of like the the Celtic sort of pagan year at a glance, with all the the ancient meanings of the months and everything. And this must have been laser printed. So if they could do that on Etsy, maybe that's the kind of thing I'll be able to do. I don't know how.
But you will figure it out.
We'll figure it out. So yeah, anyway, So I'm super excited. And it's always good to have something to look forward to. And I'm scared. There's certain parts of everything that's upcoming that's scary. And I've learned that's actually, it's good. There's good scared and bad scared.
Yep.
This is good scared.
Good. I'm glad. When is your flight takeoff for Ireland?
Yeah, it's not till May. So It's not for a little ways. Well, I go to New York first. I take Amtrak. I bring my bike, my folding bike. I've got my 92-year-old dad and stepmom are up in New York. So I'll go up there, get off at Moynihan Station, unfold my bike. And that's always a wonderful moment. Folks always get intrigued by that. I end up in these wonderful conversations. And, hopefully encourage other folks to try to do the same thing.
Absolutely. I think that's wonderful. I want to get one. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, it's always a pleasure.
Yeah, you too. I love that you've shared with us about this journey so far, and there's a lot about to happen. And I guess we'll be hearing in the upcoming weeks podcasts with the Italian farmers.
Yes. I finished one and we're trying to schedule the other. So hopefully we'll get that going. But so they'll be coming out. Really cool. So
good. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to hearing all about those. And, again, when you circle back when you want to talk some more, and we'll go from there.
Excellent. Thank you, Patty. I hope our Agri-Tourist podcast prompts you to think more about where your food comes from, whether it be your vegetables, fruits, meats, and even those sweet treats. Don't forget to subscribe and share this podcast with someone you think may truly benefit from or be inspired by it. Visit us at agri-tourist.com. Until next time.